Today I'm going to be talking about something a little different than what I've covered before. I don't really know how to start, other than usually when people disappear, we expect to see normal, average, everyday people on the news that have disappeared, but it has happened where celebrities, not like Michael Jackson level celebrity, but people who are in the industry have disappeared and have never been found. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. My name's Vanessa, and I love music history and pop culture history and all kinds of stuff. Today I'm going to be going over 6 musicians who have disappeared. Before I do that, though, I just looked and I've gotten over 100 subscribers. Yay! I had some of those, like, the things that you blow into and they come out. I don't know. I'm just really happy that there are 101 people out there that enjoy listening to me talk about random stuff. I started this channel just for myself to have an outlet, because, like, who can I go up to and just talk about 6 missing musicians with, you know? Okay, so the first musician that I'm going to start with is Lazzarus. I wanted to start with her because her story is unique in that she actually wanted to disappear. She was found. She just stepped away from the spotlight, but was really good at it, and no one could ever find her until recently, like a few years ago. Her story it's sad, but it's not as sad as some of the other ones, so I thought I'd start on a happy note. Oh, my cat. Sparks. Oh, can you not do that? What are you doing? I had to let my cat get that out of her system. She's so annoying. Lazzarus was born Diane Lucky in New Jersey on December 12, 1960. She grew up singing in the church and knew that that's what she wanted to do with her life. When she was 18, she moved to New York City to pursue a music career after being inspired by a Broadway production. In the 1980s, she was a backup singer and she wrote jingles and made music as a part of a band called Lazzarus and the Resurrection, which is how she got her stage name. During this time, Diane was a taxi driver, a live-in housekeeper, and an au pair to a wealthy family. Although she was passionate about music, she was rejected by record companies because of her looks. They said that she wasn't marketable because of her dreadlocks and her weight. As fate would have it, one night she would pick up movie director Jonathan Demme in her cab. Jonathan Demme is known for making movies like Married to the Mob and the Talking Heads concert film that I can't think. Stop Making Sense. That's what it's called. As well as Silence of the Lambs. Sparks. Stop. Sparks. Promise I love on her. I don't know what her deal is. She is not normally like this. Anyway, Jonathan Demme is also known for making Silence of the Lambs, which I just watched for the first time this year, and I loved it. It was so good. Which brings me back to Diane Lucky. While Jonathan Demme was in Lazzarus's taxi, she picked up on the vibe that he was someone important, so she decided to play her demo tape for him. He loved it, and he decided to start including her music in his films. The song she's best known for is called Goodbye Horses. This was released in 1988, and it appeared in the Silence of the Lamb movies by Jonathan Demme. Oh my gosh, I turned 28 next week, and my back hurts. Am I getting old? Anyway, I had the opportunity to buy the single, the like 12-inch single when I went to Amoeba in Hollywood, and I'm so pissed off that I didn't get it, but I only had so much room in my suitcase. So in 1996, her band broke up, and she left the public eye. Finding information about her life after 1996 was hard, but a recent documentary came out about her, I think last year, maybe the year before, and I watched it. It's been a minute, but I know she traveled to England for a while, where she performed there. She did get into drugs. She had a son. I think she was married and then divorced and then married again. I need to watch the movie again. It was really good. You can rent it on Amazon, I think. That's how I did it. After all of this, I found out that she simply retired from music and was a bus driver in Staten Island. There was a mention on her Wikipedia page that this information was found as far back as 2015 when her name appeared in a lawsuit against a bus company she was working for not hiring women. I found a New York Post article that backs this up, even though it doesn't mention her by name. In 2019, she met a woman by the name of Ava Artis? I'll put the spelling. Ava is a documentarian, and they actually worked on a documentary all about Q Lazzarus's life called Goodbye Horses. When I wrote this script, the Kickstarter campaign was still out, and it had made well over its goal. As of writing this, it seemed to have been basically complete, and it had debuted at a film festival in October 2024, but I can't remember if it came out late 2024 or sometime in 2025, but it's out now. Sadly, Q Lazzarus, also known as Diane Lucky, passed away on July 19th, 2022 from an illness. She did seem like a very lovely person and seemed like she had a very interesting life. I wish that she had a better hand. From here on out, the stories are going to get a lot more tragic, so viewer discretion is advised if you... nothing's gory or anything, but it is sad. So if you're not in a good mood, you might not want to watch this, and that's okay. The next person I want to talk about is Glenn Miller. Glenn Miller was a big band musician, so it's possible a lot of people watching probably don't know who he is, but you've probably heard some of his music on TV or movies or commercials. He was very popular in the 1930s and 40s. Technically, he was more successful than the Beatles. He had 16 number one records and 69 top 10 hits when the Beatles had 35 during their entire career. He was born in Iowa on March 1st, 1904. He played music as a child, starting with the mandolin, but then he switched to the horn. His family moved around a lot, but he ended up attending most of his high school in Fort Morgan, Colorado. He was in the school band, and after he graduated in 1921, he joined Boyd Center's orchestra. He spent a year in college before dropping out and moving to LA to continue working in music. He worked in the music business for a long time, but it took him until 1939 to receive a big break after his band's performance at the Glen Island Casino, which was broadcast on the radio. In the early 1940s, the United States was fighting in World War II, and patriotism was at an all-time high. Miller was incredibly successful during this time, but he decided that it would be the right thing for him to do to disband his orchestra and enlist in the Army. In 1942, he was inducted into the Army, and he spent months convincing the military that he could help modernize the Army bands, which should boost morale for the soldiers. In 1943, he and his military band were sent to England, and while there, they would perform for thousands of people. On December 15, 1944, Miller would board a plane to go to Paris and was never seen again. It's not entirely clear what happened, but here's what we know. The plane left at 1 o'clock in the morning, and it was a Nurden Norseman C-64 airplane, which is a single-engine aircraft. The plane was tracked over England, all the way over an area called Richey Head, which is in the south of England, but it was never spotted above France. It's believed the plane probably went down somewhere in the English Channel. At one point, there was a theory from an RAF navigator, Fred Shaw, that a small aircraft was forced out of the sky by an explosion, but that's not confirmed. For a long time, this was a wildly accepted answer, but an author named Dennis Sprague found a lot of errors in that story. He studied flight logs and found that the times that were reported that the plane was bombed did not match up when the plane carrying Miller disappeared. With this theory thrown out, it's believed that what happened was probably human error and probably weather related. Apparently they were flying without weather information, without clearance, or provision for a rescue, just in case. Unfortunately, I think I agree with that. I think it was an unfortunate accident due to human error, and it's been so long that it's very unlikely physical evidence of the crash would ever be found. Glenn Miller was declared dead on December 16, 1945, and to this day his body has never been found. Next is Richey Edwards. Richey James Edwards was a Welsh musician. Oh my gosh, I cannot talk today. Richard James Edwards was a Welsh musician and guitarist for the band Manic Street Preachers. He was born on December 22nd, 1967, and had one younger sister named Rachel. According to the both of them, they had a relatively normal and happy childhood. Edwards also received a degree in political history. Edwards had started out as a roadie and a driver for the Manic Street Preachers, but was eventually taken on as a rhythm guitarist, but he couldn't play guitar. He did, however, write most of the band's lyrics. It's well known that Edwards had severe depression. He would self-harm a lot by burning himself with cigarettes or cutting. At one point in an interview, a journalist asked Eddie how serious he was about his art. And to show the journalist how serious he was, he carved the words "for real" into his arm. For this stunt, he had to get stitches. He had insomnia, which he self-medicated for by drinking alcohol to sleep. In the early 1990s, it'd gotten so bad that he checked himself into a couple of mental hospitals. He disappeared on February 1st, 1995, at the age of 27. Apparently, he and his bandmate James Bradfield were supposed to fly out to America for promotions, but when Bradfield went to meet him downstairs, he never showed up. Before this, Edwards had withdrawn 2,800 pounds from his bank account over a period of time and took his personal belongings, along with some Prozac, and checked out of his hotel at 7 a.m. Bradfield was able to get the hotel staff to open Edwards' room, and they found a bathtub full of water and a box with a note that said, "I love you," addressed to his ex-girlfriend, and a copy of Equus, which is a play. This box was also wrapped like a gift, maybe signifying that he wanted it given to his ex-girlfriend. 2 weeks after this, his car was found close to Severn Bridge in Wales, with the battery dead. When it was found, there were photos of Edwards' family inside. It looked like he had been living in his car for a while, but he was never found and no body was recovered from the water around the bridge. There were apparent sightings of Edwards. One was on February 5th when a fan said they saw him at the bus station. This was before the public had known he had disappeared. Another was February 7th when a taxi driver supposedly picked Edwards up. He said the man had a Cockney accent that would occasionally turn Welsh and was driven first to Blackwood bus station, then to Pontypool railway station. A toll booth receipt from the toll on Severn Bridge was found, showing that he did in fact cross the bridge when he vanished, as it was dated 2:55 p.m. on February 1st. However, it was later found out that the clock operated on a 24-hour clock, so that means the ticket was for 2:55 in the morning, which throws off this entire timeline. Apparently, since all of this, there have been reported sightings of Edwards in India, Liverpool, and New York, but nothing has ever been confirmed. Some people theorize that Edwards faked his own death, and there is some evidence towards that, such as the sightings of him, along with a fascination that he had with disappearances. Many people do, however, believe that he committed suicide, even though no body was ever found. Sadly, I think that he probably did take his own life, just with his history of depression. It seems like the most likely theory. I did read that the Severn Bridge where his car was found was a well-known suicide spot. It wouldn't surprise me if he had decided to take his own life. He was legally declared dead on November 23rd, 2008. Okay, I think this next one's really interesting. This is Christina Licorice McKechnie, who was born on October 2nd, 1945, in Scotland. She was best known as a singer and songwriter in the Incredible String Band. The Incredible String Band was a psychedelic folk group who had some success in the United Kingdom in the late 60s and early 70s. I'm pretty sure they performed at Woodstock. I know they performed at Woodstock. They did perform at Woodstock. I couldn't find a lot about her life. Okay, well, actually, when I was first doing the research for this, I had a hard time finding information about her life or surrounding her disappearance, but I did find some things, and I will get into that. In 1963, she was married to a man called Bert. Ooh! Spider! No! No, 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 no! No! Oh, I handled that well. Anyway. Oh my gosh, where did I leave? Oh, my water. In 1963, she was married to Bert Jansch, who was a folk musician, but he left her and she became involved with a man named Robin Williamson, who was the founding member of the Incredible String Band. In 1967, she provided vocals on one of the tracks of the ISB, Incredible String Band. I'm just abbreviating it. The 5,000 Spirits or the Layers of the Onion. And by 1968, she was a full member of the band, even performing at Woodstock with them. She left the band in 1972 when her relationship with Robin Williamson ended. Apparently, when the band was performing at Woodstock, they experienced some scheduling conflicts, and fans on the day they performed weren't too impressed with them. The band wasn't featured in the soundtrack or the film that documented the Woodstock Festival, which is true. Allegedly, she was a member of Scientology after she left the Incredible String Band, and was dating a man who was an ordained minister in Scientology. I also found a post that mentioned her performing at a Scientology benefit concert in 1974. We'll come back to that. She was also credited with vocals on a 1977 album from Robin Williamson and his merry band. After this, there isn't much. It's said that McKechnie's sister heard from her in 1990 after she had been recovering from surgery in California. Past that, it's really murky. All of the sources that I found say that she disappeared while hitchhiking in the Arizona desert. Apparently, there was a theory in 2019 that she was still very much alive and living in California, but I cannot find anything to verify that. Old ISB members refer to her in the past tense, and one even made a statement saying there's a possibility she may be dead. Some people even speculate that Scientology had something to do with it. Okay, so first I want to say, if somehow the Church of Scientology comes across this video, please don't come at me. I'm just reporting on what I've found, but I will be the first to admit that I'm very biased because I hate Scientology. I've done a lot of research on it. I've watched all kinds of documentaries. I've seen the Leah Remini show, and it is a shit-ass organization who preys on vulnerable people, and they should be shut down. So, what I found out about Licorice McKechnie doesn't really surprise me, and I would not be surprised if Scientology was involved somehow. Please don't fair game me, Scientology. I'm just a girl and I have an opinion, okay? You don't have any dirt on me anyway. Well, I threatened to run someone over with my car one time. I found an interview with her ex-husband, Brian Lambert, who said that she had a mental breakdown after reaching level OT3. This was an interview with Ron Miscavige, David Miscavige's dad. So, okay, I'm doing this off the top of my head because I didn't write anything down about Scientology, so I could be wrong, but I went through a whole phase this last winter time where that's all I wanted to learn about. So, David Miscavige is the leader of Scientology. He basically shoehorned his way in after L. Ron Hubbard died, and L. Ron Hubbard was the founder of Scientology. David Miscavige is known as a tyrant by a lot of ex-Scientology members. They said that he was physically abusive, emotionally abusive, and mentally abusive. His wife, Shelley, has also been missing for a long time. People have asked. Leah Remini even tried to get the police involved, but all of the Scientologists claim that she willingly does not want to be in the spotlight, but no one has seen her in, at least 10 years. So, when you're a Scientologist, you have to take these courses. I don't remember what they're called. The levels are operating thetans. There's like two paths, and there's the operating thetan path, and then there's another path, and they have this big chart that shows you the steps that you have to take to reach the bridge of total freedom. But the catch is no one ever gets there because the courses stop at like OT level 8, and you pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to get up to these levels, but you're never going to reach the top because those levels don't exist. They cap out after L. Ron Hubbard died. He never finished his writings or whatever, the teachings. So David Miscavige came in. He came out and was like, hey, there's a new OT level not that long ago, and we took it from like writing of L. Ron Hubbard and made it ourselves. So, but I have heard like OT level 3 is the level that a lot of people seem to kind of either go full into it or they start to break down. And a lot of now, I don't know if Licorice McKechnie was a member of the Sea Org, but a lot of people who do these classes that aren't celebrities, who don't pay, like, so Scientology preys on celebrities because they know that it helps with their image, but they also want these normal people to join because that's how they get their money, really. I mean, the celebrities have to pay too, but it's a little different. They get a lot more perks. The normal people, like Licorice McKechnie, even though she was a singer, she's not like Tom Cruise, you know? The normal people, they have to take out mortgages on their homes, credit cards, loans, just to pay for these courses that they're told will fix them and that will help them know how to fix the world. They have an organization in Scientology called the Sea Org, which is the thing, if you've ever heard the billion-year contract, that's what that's for. So you're basically signing your entire life away. So when you try to leave, if you don't want to be in Scientology anymore, you sign the contract. So that gives them free reign to do whatever they want with you, which not really. They say that people can leave when they want to, but that's not true. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. We're talking about people who disappeared, not Scientology. Okay, this interview that her ex-husband Brian Lambert did with Ron Miscavige, he said that she had a mental breakdown after getting to level OT3. He married Licky, which was his nickname for her, after only 2 days. He fell in love with her after seeing her on an album cover and was introduced to her through a friend. He says that she had a lot of issues, but she was very sweet. But she might have been abused when she was younger, which would predispose her, you know, to seek comfort in a group of people who say that they're going to offer her comfort, like a cult. Anyway, he says that while he was with her, she had bouts of anger and religious delusions. She was OT level 3, and she was doing 40 hours a week of auditing. If you don't know what auditing is, this is something that all Scientologists have to do, but you have to go through special training to be an auditor, but you still have to be audited. And they use this thing called an e-meter, which is basically kind of like a lie detector test. You hold these cans and it claim that it measures like something in your body, and auditing is a way to clear you. So when they say going clear, when they reach clear, they've cleared out all of these negative thoughts and energy. So that's what auditing is. They basically just sit you down in a room and they ask you questions and they kind of interrogate you. They try to like back you into a corner and get you to say very, very personal things, and that's what they use as blackmail if you want to leave. After her band broke up, she moved to California. And I guess she was in something that's called the non-interference zone. And this is a zone where you had to be careful or you would go crazy. And she went crazy. And the thing is, they tell Scientologists, not you, I mean, I've never been, but I've read a lot. They tell Scientologists that you can't learn about levels above you or else you'll die. So that's why when people ask Scientologists, like, hey, who's Xenu? Tell me about Xenu. They can't. They lie to you and say that he's not real, but he is real, but they think that if they tell you about it, you're gonna die, because this is just knowledge that you can't handle. So I think that's what this is talking about. And there was a case of a lady in Florida, because that's where the Sea Org base is in Clearwater. They basically own the whole town, who kind of went through something similar, and she died in the care of Scientology. Now, I don't think that's what happened with Licorice McKechnie, but I don't know. She tried to get auditing to help her, but it was not helping her, and she started hearing voices. Brian Lambert says that he went home and he found her in the bathroom under the sink crying. She said to her husband, "I'm the one who created OT3," over and over again. At this point, she didn't have any money, and her husband tried to get her help, but they wouldn't help her because she didn't have any money. You have to have money to be audited. You have to have money to get help from Scientology, and that's not how a church should work. Apparently, ISB was a huge part of how Scientology became popular in the United Kingdom. Brian Lambert compared them to Tom Cruise. Like, they were that level in the UK back in the 60s and 70s, preaching Scientology. McKechnie was sent to be reviewed. Brian Lambert had to sign something that said if she killed herself, they were not responsible. When she got out, she was worse, and she became homeless. She lived in his backyard and in vacant lots in California, but he said that she was happy. She was scared that people would recognize her as she was waiting tables. Brian believes that she might have went underground. I did some more research on ISB, and it looks like they were deep into Scientology. They had an album called U, like the letter U, and it had many references to the religion. I honestly don't know what I believe with this one. I think that she, at this point, because she was born in 1945, there's a good chance that she probably has passed away. Whether she had passed away a long time ago when she went missing or recently, I hope that she was able to live a long and relatively happy life in obscurity, but I don't know. I do think that Scientology was probably involved in some way. Whatever Scientology did to her pushed her over the edge. Unfortunately, maybe when she was homeless, she got hurt. There's nothing else that talks about this except for that interview, and I will link it in the description because it is very interesting. You can make your own conclusion. Okay, the next person I want to talk about is Jim Sullivan. He was born August 13th, 1939 in Nebraska, and his family relocated to California during World War II. He played guitar in high school, and he was on the varsity football team. He would go on to marry his high school sweetheart in 1960. Her name was Barbara, and she worked at Capitol Records after they had moved to LA in the 1960s. Her boss tried to push Sullivan's music to the record executives, but they didn't care. Sullivan was playing all around Los Angeles, so other people were aware of his talent. He became friends with Dennis Hopper, who was an actor, and was in the very famous film Easy Rider. You know who else was in Easy Rider? Jack Nicholson, and you know what else Jack Nicholson did? He did the movie Head with the monkeys, and you know what else the monkeys did? He actually had an uncredited role in Easy Rider. He was a guitar player, I think, on the commune that they stop at. Al Dobbs, who was another actor, heard him and really wanted to help him record an album, and it worked out. Dobbs co-founded a small label with some friends and even recruited the Wrecking Crew, of all people, to help back Sullivan. The Wrecking Crew had worked with well-known musicians like the Beach Boys and the Byrds and the Monkees, all kinds of stuff. The subsequent album that was released was called UFO, but it made very little impact. But it was pretty good. I listened to it. I liked it. He released another album in 1972, but that also flopped. The struggles he was having in his career led him and his wife to separate while he was going to Nashville. Hopefully, he would be able to establish himself there, and then his wife and his kids would come join him. Jim left LA on March 4th, 1975 to go to Nashville alone. According to some notes left by his late wife Barbara, she had passed away in 2016, he called her sometime on March 5th telling her he was okay. She was asking for more details, but he was very cryptic, saying, "You wouldn't believe it if I told you." She asked what was wrong, and he told her to forget it. Apparently, on the same day, he was pulled over for the suspicion that he was driving under the influence, but he passed a sobriety test and then checked into a hotel in New Mexico. After a few days, Sullivan's family called hospitals and police, which is when they learned of the fact that he was pulled over. Police told Barbara that the hotel room that Sullivan booked was never used, and on March 8th, his car was towed away 24 miles south of that town that he had stopped at. His beloved guitar was found in the front seat. Past this, I couldn't find any more information. There was a body that was found in the desert that kind of looked like Sullivan, but it was determined to be someone else. There are a few theories about this one. One theory is he just decided to disappear on his own. His manager, Robert Ginter, had a conversation with Sullivan where they spoke about how they would disappear if they had to, and Sullivan said that he would just walk out into the desert. Some people think the mafia or someone else was out to get him. Maybe he met someone out in the desert and got into some trouble. Apparently, the place where his car was found was close to a family farm, and that family moved to Hawaii shortly after the disappearance. Coincidence? Probably. Apparently, the local sheriff retired shortly after this too. Some people think it's possible he was abducted by aliens, as his album UFO had some mystic messages. You always hear about aliens out in the West, out in like Roswell, New Mexico. People say freaky stuff happens at Joshua Tree. You never know. Maybe when he was pulled over for his erratic driving, he was actually having a mental episode. Honestly, I don't know what I think about this. I don't know if I believe one theory over another. I think he might have hurt himself or got into some trouble. By this time, just with how old he would be, he might have already passed away if he had been alive. But if he was alive and he didn't pass away back when he disappeared, I hope that he had a long, good, and happy life. Okay, this is the last person on my list of musicians that have disappeared, and her name is Connie Converse. She was born on August 3rd, 1924, and her birth name was Elizabeth Eaton Converse, and she's from Lasonia, New Hampshire. Reading about her, it seems like her family was very close and they would perform plays together. Apparently, she was very smart and was valedictorian of her high school class and received a full ride scholarship to Mount Holyoke College, but she left after 2 years to go to New York. While in New York, she had lived in Greenwich Village, Hell's Kitchen, and Harlem. Here is where she started calling herself Connie before starting to write music. She worked in an editorial job and at a printing house. In 1954, a friend convinced her to go to a music salon hosted by Gene Deitch, who was an animator. Deitch recorded her and described her as standoffish, and she wasn't concerned with how she looked. Apparently when she came in, she had no makeup on, she was wearing a shapeless dress, and her hair was in a bun. But the crowd really liked her. Somehow, she was invited to appear on CBS's morning show in 1954 as well. Fortunately, the actual footage of this is lost, but there are some stills of that you can find online, so you never know, it might be found someday. This is also the only known public performance that she ever did. After a while, she moved to Harlem to an apartment that had a piano and began to change the style of her music. In 1956, she recorded an album for her brother Phil called Musics, spelt with a CK, volumes 1 and 2, and included all of the songs she had written on her guitar up to that point. At this time, she picked up smoking and drinking, which was not normal for her, as she had been raised very religious. She worked incredibly hard. She wrote and recorded as much as possible, and she tried to perform for managers, producers, and agents. In 1961, she was frustrated and she moved to Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is where her brother and wife lived. Her brother helped her get a job at the college he worked at with the Journal of Conflict Resolution as a secretary, then an editor. Over time, she took on more work, and she stopped writing music. She stopped talking to her friends in New York City, and her colleagues were so worried about her, they got money together to send her to London. It seems that she gave up on music, which is really, really sad. And earlier I mentioned that she was very self-isolated, but apparently she didn't take care of herself very well. She had bad teeth, and she didn't smell well, and that can impact success, unfortunately. And that can be a result of severe depression. I've been there. She was a very private person, and anytime she was asked about her personal life, she would just respond with a yes or a no and no other details. As time went on, she was smoking and drinking a lot more heavily. She never confirmed that she was ever involved in a romantic relationship, and her brother said it was possible that she might have been a lesbian. In 1973, the journal that she worked with moved to Yale without her knowing, and this journal meant so much to her. This was kind of like the final straw. Around this time, she was told that she needed a hysterectomy, which can be very devastating. In 1974, a few days after her 50th birthday, she wrote letters to family and friends, alluding to her making a new life somewhere, and she left and was never seen again. In the letter to her brother Phil, she included a check to make sure her insurance was paid for, and for him to stop paying for it after a certain time. She would have been 100 years old in 2024. I doubt that she would be alive right now if she hadn't passed away before. Her family was devastated, but since it appeared that she left because she wanted to, they respected her wishes for the most part. They did hire a private investigator to help find her, but the investigator told them that even if he did find her, she didn't have to come back. The only other lead is someone who told her brother that they saw an Elizabeth Converse somewhere in the Midwest, but they decided not to pursue this lead to respect her wishes. I hate the fact that she felt that she had to give up on her dream, and I hate that she was so depressed that she didn't feel like she could take care of herself. And I get it. When I had depression really bad, I had a really hard time taking care of my teeth. Unfortunately, I do think she probably did take her own life. Possible that she might have just left on her own because she wanted to, which I get that too. Sometimes when you feel like you've lost everything, you just want to start over. I hope that whatever happened, that she's happy, was able to live a good life until she passed. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, or at least found it interesting. I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but I find stuff like this very fascinating. I hate that probably not a majority of the people, at least a couple of the people on this list probably did end up taking their own life, and I hate that they felt that was their only option. I hope that if anyone out there feels like that they know that they're not alone. You can always reach out to me. I know I'm a stranger on the internet, but my DMs are always open on Instagram. I know what it feels like to be totally alone and not have anybody, or at least feel that way. And it really, really does get better. My life's not perfect, but it is so much better than it was 10 years ago. I will be starting grad school in June. I've been editing these on my own time. I usually try to do at least one clip a night. Sometimes I get really into it and I do a ton in one day. I mean, I don't have a normal regular upload schedule because that's a lot of pressure on myself. So if anyone has any ideas for topics that they'd like for me to talk about, let me know. I just did a bunch of research on Full Metal Jacket in the Vietnam War. Might seem out of left field, but it's one of my favorite movies. The research was really interesting, so I'd love to talk more about film and just normal history, or really anything. I'll talk about anything that I find interesting or that people want to hear me talk about. Sometimes I just be talking. That's so cringy. Anyway. Okay, bye!